inducted, you actually go into the service on your 18th birthday? Or did you go on before then?
I was past 18 by the time I got called up. I was the 21st of January, 44. I turned 18 in 43.
Yeah, so was that, so you actually get in 44, so you were actually going in with, yeah, because that's when you were actually going in with the replacement group.
Yeah, I was a replacement for,
you were in a lucky part of it because that was the particular crew that really, like in the Battle of Bullets, they were the ones that really took
as a matter of fact, I was on my way home when the war ended in Europe. Germany surrendered on May the 8th, 1945, and at that particular time I was sitting in a replacement, we called it a Repo Depot, replacement depot in Naples, Italy, on our way home. But
so you go in 44 and you do your basic training and
yeah, what happened is I reported in at Fort Douglas on January 21st of 44, and they sent the group I was with down to Buckley Field, Colorado, just out of Denver.
So did you guys take the trains? Ride on a train over there, or they put you on trucks, or?
Yeah, we rode a train down there. So we got to our base in Buckley Field, and that was basic training, which didn't last too long. And then we were on our way down to flight training at Kingman, Arizona, where we were in training as part of a B-17 bomber crew, 10 men to an airplane. And the strange part is I did all my training, initial training, flight training on B-17s, but when I got to our actual battle stations in Italy, they switched us over to B-24s.
So about the time
I kind of like the B-24 a little better than 17 anyhow.
So about the time that you were actually in basic training, they were actually clearing out Italy, making it possible so they could put a base in Italy while you were in basic training.
Well, they had the main base that we were assigned to when we got to Italy was already established at Foggia, just on the Adriatic side.
And then when you got there, was what, that summer or something like that?
It was actually, let's see, we left Newport News, Virginia in...
On a troop ship, it was just like the ones you saw in the Band of Brothers.
It was still in hurricane season, and that lasts from clear up till in October. It was in September we left on this troop ship, and we were just 1 or 2 days ahead of a hurricane, but the hurricane caught up with us and it got really rough out there. The guys were really having a hard time keeping it down and staying on these 3-decker bunks. You know, most of them just laid down while we were on the rough seas, but you'd hear them running into the latrine to kind of toss their cookies.
Yeah.
It was pretty rough. I didn't have that much trouble with it myself because I was pretty stable all through the voyage, but
this was just like we saw in the Band of Brothers, where those guys were all stacked up in
exactly,
just like that. And then, but now it doesn't show it in that movie, but in the book it talks about how they had to rotate and they had to sleep up on decks. And,
some of them were up on the deck, and some of them had the bunks, and it was crowded.
And the smell of bad feet was permeating through the.
Yeah, for sure. There were showers there, but you know.
I heard they were cold showers. You actually showered with
seawater. They weren't really hot showers. It looked kind of lukewarm, but.
Well, conditions improved then from the time you did it, from when they did it.
What was interesting, it was 28 days voyage from Newport News, Virginia, to where we finally docked at Bari, Italy, and offloaded to go to our stations at. I was at. My 459th Bomb Group was just out of a little town called Sherignola, just south of the big main base of Foggia. And that group of colored P-51 flyers, they were up at Foggia.
The guys that...
They followed us.
Oh, they just did a movie about them. It was... what was it?
I think you're right, I can't remember
Yeah,
the
I
name
can't
of
remember.
it.
Oh, shoot, the Alabama, anyway, yeah, I'll think about it in a minute. Yeah, the black guys escorted you guys.
Yeah, they escort us in and out, and it's kind of interesting we'd hear them on the radio, and they'd kind of joke about it when they'd see German Messerschmitt airplanes coming in to attack us. They'd get to them before any of us could see them. We'd hear them on the radio say, "Where's he at? 12 o'clock high. Ready? 3 of them." And then we'd hear a machine gun fire, you know, and that we never did see them actually, but we'd hear them attacking Messerschmitts that were coming after us.
So tell me about your very first mission. I'm sure I wanted to ask you this after you'd seen that Band
very
Brothers
first
episode.
mission
Was it a lot? Were your feelings a lot like what you saw in the movie last
Pretty
night?
much. The first one, it sticks in my mind because we were briefed ahead of time that we're going to hit the crack German anti-aircraft school at Munich, Germany. And they were red-hot gunners with 88 millimeter anti-aircraft guns. And this is where we first learned about things like window, shaft, like a Christmas tinsel you put on a Christmas tree.
Yeah, they'd gotten pretty good at that at the time. They just started. I know I was reading. They just started using that when on D-Day.
Yeah.
So by the time you got
As
out
we
there,
approached the target, we'd start throwing out that chaff,
that aluminum foil.
To kind of upset the enemy radar. They couldn't get on us because they'd pick up that tinsel instead of us, and if they fired, why they weren't really hitting us, they were just hitting a bunch of tinsel.
Well, you know, on D-Day, the night before, they were able to use that window to make it look like it was a whole different bomber group coming across the channel.
You could be confused that way, and that's what happened,
So, but they must have got it down to a science by the time you were out there.
It was pretty well in use by the time we got there,
Must have saved a lot of lives.
It helped, that's for sure. Turn that off just a minute. I gotta take this.
We're there. Okay, so we're just finishing up here. We're about 19. So actually, where we're at is that you actually got deployed about September, October of 1944.
43.
No, I mean when you actually got a training. You were actually in the
When
theater.
I actually went overseas, it was a year later. But I first enlisted in the old Army Air Corps Enlisted Reserve in 1943.
Yeah, I got that. Then
Then in 1944, I was called to active duty.
And that was in January
21st. I remember it well. Went up to Fort Douglas.
So you didn't finish your high school education then?
No, I didn't, unfortunately. I left in my junior year, but I later finished it over on the island of Oahu.
Okay, so you took all your GED.
I went to night school and I got my GED, and then surprise of surprise, 56 years later, I got my official Pocatello High School diploma. What happened was, it was on Pearl Harbor Day 3 years ago. I got a call, and it was the superintendent of education here in Pocatello, and she said, "Mr. Luker, we'd like very much for you to join about 50 other veterans from this area who left school early during World War II to go and fight for the country and preserve our freedoms, and we're so grateful. We want to see that all of you get your high school diploma." And it was nice. We reported in as ordered, and we're sitting on the stage up there at the big auditorium at Pocatello High School. And I recalled that time way back in 1944, just before we went overseas to the war. We had a chance to come home on our last furlough, and it was in May of 1944. I was sitting up in the balcony of this big auditorium there were 4 other veterans with me, and each one of us wore a different uniform. And we were watching our classmates get their diplomas as they walked across the stage. And like they always do, they had a wonderful speaker there, a tall, white-haired gentleman from a big corporation somewhere, I forget which one. But his closing words to the class of 44, he stood up tall, and he raised his arms high in the air, and he said, "And now, as we part, I want to urge you to stand tall, think tall, live tall, and be afraid to die until you've done something for humanity." And then he looked at us veterans up there already in uniform. "You guys up there in the top row, good luck to you wherever you go." And fortunately, I did have good luck. I came through all the
you did.
battles unscathed. Some of my crewmates weren't so lucky. One of them got Silver Star for being shot up as we were attacking a German convoy leaving Italy, and they got right on us, and a flak shell broke through his turret and clipped off his left heel. And anyway, that's another story, but I got through the war okay, came back home.
Well, no, but before you do that, though, so now, but I just want to get a little detail about when you actually got in theater. Before you, so you actually, your first mission was.
My very first air mission in combat was bombing the crack German aircraft school in Munich, Austria.
That would have been like in October or.
That would have been in about October of '44.
So this would be to put this in historical perspective. This would be after the Market Garden when they tried to liberate Holland, and that kind of fell flat. Then they liberated. They'd have most of.
It was before the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah.
And when the war was just about to end, you know, it was.
They were making their last thrust.
Last thrust, yeah. So, but they had a rule there. You had to have 35 missions, and if you survived 35 combat missions, you could rotate back stateside. And halfway through the missions, you got a break. They gave you a week off, and you had a choice of going to the Isle of Capri at Naples, Italy, or to the Rome, the seat of where the Pope is, and the Catholic boys like to go there, or you could go to the Riviera on the south beach.
Oh, that's right. They liberated the Riviera that summer.
Yeah. And so I chose the Isle of Capri, and it was very nice. I met a little Italian girl there. They brought a boatload of girls over from Naples so the soldiers would have somebody to dance with. They had nice music, and it's beautiful. It's where the old Roman Empire kings used to go, and they still had some of the old facilities there. They showed the vomitoriums where they'd eat themselves sick, and they'd go out and vomit and then go back and eat some more and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I didn't even know they did that. That's awful.
But so and the Blue Grotto, beautiful place, a big cave right underneath a cliff that washes up against the Isle of Capri. At certain times, boats can get in and out of there, and they took us in and out, so we got a chance to see the Blue Grotto. And it was wonderful. And then back to the war, and we were almost through with our missions when this incident happened, when our tail gunner got his foot shot off, and so he had to leave the crew, but the rest of us got through okay with just minor, had a lot of injuries.
So now you guys went back and bombed Powesty oil fields again?
Well, that was in the beginning, before, in fact, that was through just as I was getting there.
Okay, so you didn't actually, because I know they did it the first time and it was really daring deal they did.
Those guys came out of North Africa.
Yeah, out of North Africa. And you guys, so then when you guys got based in Italy, they did it again.
They had the base set up by the time we got there, and yeah. And then we had other missions. The very farthest one we went to was clear up to Berlin, which was way out of our target area. But they wanted, it was getting toward the end of the war. It was about April. The Germans finally surrendered in May of '45. Yeah. And in April '45, they said, okay, all-out attack on Berlin. And they had both the 8th Air Force out of England and the 15th Air Force out of Italy came in together and really plastered Berlin, and that's when Hitler was down in his cave with his girlfriend, and they, I don't know.
You guys kind of made it a little easier for the Russians to make their way into town. Huh?
Yeah, the Russians got in there first ahead of us, and I told you the story how they grabbed up as many of the German scientists as they could and took them back to Russia because they were real knowledgeable about rocketry. And we got our share of them. You saw the pictures in there.
Yeah, you were with Werner von Braun.
We brought about 8 or 10 of them over to help us get our space program started in rockets, and that's the reason we were able to move out as fast as we did. The Germans were there to help, and they knew all that
Yeah, it's amazing how advanced they were, actually. Well, now let me ask you this: what was now your mother was actually from Germany? What did she feel about you going over and bombing her homeland?
Mom's case was special because she left Germany at age 18, and the last communication she had with her family was after World War I, not World War II. And this was, she came over before World War I got underway, and her parents. It was a real tough time on her parents. Her mother ended up with tuberculosis in a German hospital, and that's the last she heard of her. And my namesake, my uncle Mike, Michael Wager, Winter, her maiden name was Winter Wager, yeah, Michael Wager, he was following in the footsteps of his dad. I never knew any of those people in Germany. They were gone before I was born. But my grandfather Wager was a very talented civil engineer. Spoke 7 languages. He did big projects, not just little piddling projects in cities, raising buildings and things, but build like these huge bridges and dams and things like that.
Yeah, the Germans were really good at stuff like that.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, I never got to know any of those people, but interesting, fast forward to when my son went on his mission.
He went on a mission to
area,
place where
Germany.
you used to bomb.
And then his son, his number 1 son, followed him the same way, went over, he was in the Swiss South German mission, but they went over, when Daniel the boy finished his mission, Lynn, his dad, and his mom went over to pick him up, and like a lot of parents do when LDS boys finish their missions, they met him over in Switzerland, went over into Germany, and they actually found some of the relatives they knew.
Oh, really?
Because of genealogy work that my mother had done over the years, she had the record of the names of these people who came originally out of Russia and the Ukraine, that area. They moved down into Germany, and they located them actually over there. So if you ever see a copy of this, you get in touch with your cousin Lynn, and he can give you some genealogy you probably don't have on our family line. Well, what else do you want
Let's
to
see.
know
I guess
about
we're through that. So basically, you were in combat mode for about what, 6 months then? 6, 7, 8 months.
Oh, more than that, really.
Let's see, October.
Yeah, we left in August 44, got over there in September, started our combat missions in late September or early October.
It's about 8 months.
Yeah,
About 8
and
months.
up until the time Germany surrendered.
And so you were able to you flew 35 missions then.
Yeah, made it all the way through the 35 missions.
And with 35 missions, that got you, I think it was 80 points that you had to have?
85.
85.
Our crew managed to, the total when we added everything up for all the campaigns that we bombed in, it came to 85 points. So that's why we were on our way home when the war ended. We were actually on our way home.
That's pretty incredible. You guys are pretty fortunate. So then, back you came here, went to school for a while.
After I got out of the service it was about October 45 when I finally got home.
I scanned your discharge papers. So
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I thought that would be interesting stuff to preserve.
Well, that's nice. You put them on the screen?
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. I'm glad you did that. So it shows all my decorations. I got my air medal with about 4 or 5 oak leaf clusters, and later I got some more ribbons and medals in the Korean War. That was another chapter of my war.
Okay, so now you so both you and Dick both served together in Hawaii in the bomber group there.
Yeah.
And this time you're not being shot at. There's no flak, so that's a little easier duty.
That time we were in the 7th Air Force in Hawaii, and we had war games, but they weren't really serious shooting at you games.
So you did that, and then you guys got out in 49. Is it 49?
Yeah, 49. We was over there 3 years, and we got out from 46 to 49.
And when you
in that
when you got
episode.
out in 49, you would be how old would you be then?
Well, my age was subtract 25 from 49, it'd be 34. What?
Well, I don't even think you're that old yet, are you? You'd be
Well,
25, 49. 24. Yeah, it'd be 24.
Isn't that what I said?
I thought you said 34. Okay.
What? 24.
24.
That's about right. And then a new career opened up for me, and it was with the Atomic Energy Commission. I was with the military almost 10 years. I was with the Atomic Energy Commission almost 10 years. And then with the Space Agency almost 10 years. So the 30 years of government service finally concluded in 1970. And I was launching
And
rockets
that's when
in California.
that's when I started seeing more of you, was when you retired in 1970.
I think that's true. Yeah, I came back.
I think
to Idaho.
you came through twice when you worked for NASA. I remember.
Yeah.
Or 2 times, and then we see you more when you moved to Lompoc after
And
that.
I guess it was about 1972 when your little brother Kenny was in trouble in detention down there, and I was I had nothing to keep me.
That was about 73, actually. I remember
73
that. Yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
And I called up and talked to your dad, and he told me, yeah, Kenny's in trouble. He's been going with these guys that are into drugs and stuff, and he's in detention. I said, well, what does it take to get him out? And he said, he needs to have a place with somebody watching over him and that will sign that they will get him steered in the right direction. I said, well, I just happen to have some free time. I'll come down and do it. And that was fun. I brought the camper down there,
Yeah,
went down,
I remember
signed the
that.
papers, got him out. He always wanted to go to Disneyland.
Yeah.
So we made plans to go to Disneyland, and en route, we stopped at Donna's place in Overton, Nevada. And that's where I met my soon-to-be second wife.
Yeah, February, yeah.
There was a picture there of Beverly, and I said to Donna, who is that? She said, well, that's my sister-in-law. I said, oh, I don't think I ever heard about her, or even knew about her. She said, well, yeah, her husband, you know the story about the bank holdup and how.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But I don't think her husband was involved in that. I don't know much.
Well,
I asked
it
Donna
was-
about that, yeah.
It was her, it was,
Oh, you're talking about Bud Walkington. That was her, Donna's second
Staley.
husband, Staley.
What was his name?
You're talking about Larry Staley.
Larry, yeah. It was Larry's sister that I was looking at.
Yeah, I knew that.
And so she told me all about it, and I says, well, where is she now? She says, she comes down here every once in a while. She lives in Salt Lake. And I said, well, I'm glad you told me about that. When I get back home, when we get back home, Kenny was with me.
Yeah.
And when we get back home, I'll give her a call, and we'll see what happens. And so we went on down, saw Disneyland, had a good time, and Kenny promised me, so when I talked to him like a dad would talk to his wayward son, said, when you get back to Salt Lake, I want you to promise me you won't go with the gang anymore that's got you in trouble. He says, well, I'll probably see him, but I'm not going to get involved like I did that took me into detention. And I said, well, you ought to think about getting a job. He said, well, I'd like to, but I don't know what to do or where to start. And I said, when we get back, I'm going to take you to McDonald's and see if they've got a place for you.
Yeah, I remember that. He came and lived with me after
And
that.
I left,
Yeah.
after I dropped him off and had an interview there, but I don't know if he ever went to work
He did.
there
He
or
did.
not.
He came and lived with me for.
Did he stay at your place?
Yeah, this is for a couple months, something like that. And I'm not sure.
Well, I'm
where
glad that he
yeah,
got started
yeah,
off right anyhow.
That was. I'm not sure where he stayed after that. I kind of lost track of him, but that was.
Yeah. Well, so that's the story, and then let's see, how far did it get? We talked about the Korean War.
It'd be good to put some of that in there. Just tell a little bit about that because I don't because all of the other stuff you're talking about now.
what
I know the
happened-
history. I know the history of where you're at.
What happened when I finally got out of the Hawaiian tour, which lasted 3 years. Got back to stateside in '49, and at that time, in the year 1949, here in Idaho, they opened up a site for atomic energy research. 500,000 acres of sagebrush land out here by Arco, Idaho. It's about 30 miles from here. There's a bus that still runs
Yeah,
out
I
there
see
every
I've
day,
seen those buses.
taking people
Those
to work out
buses
there
they
every
take them
day.
out there in.
So an ad appeared in the paper one day. Any veteran who wants to be considered for employment at the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission should be at the Rogers Hotel in Idaho Falls at a certain time, 10 o'clock on Monday morning, for an interview. And both my Uncle Dick and my sister's husband Dick, he was interested. He was just running a service station, working a service station. I was working, building houses for the rich farmers that all got rich during the war over around American Falls.
So Dick come back to live here with Linda here in Idaho?
Here in Pocatello. He was running a service station here.
Okay.
And so we both went up to Idaho Falls for the interview, and they only were going to hire 12 guys, and the job they had for these veterans was they'd give them radio-equipped jeeps to patrol this 500,000 acres of sagebrush land, and we had to do such things as setting up barricades and signs to roads that shouldn't be entered, and keeping people out of there, because shortly construction was going to start on these reactors up there. And so that was a pretty good paying job. It doesn't sound much today, but $2,900 a year sounded big to us then.
Yeah.
It was enough for us to buy a new house and get started in a new life.
Wow, I can't believe how things changed in 30 years. So.
Yeah. So we changed our whole mode of living and our location, moved to Idaho Falls, and that's where we got started down the track for atomic energy. But just about a year into it, as a matter of fact, it wasn't even a year, what happened, we went to work in November of '49, moved to Idaho Falls, and you know what happened in August 1950?
Yeah.
President Truman declared an emergency. The Korean War broke out. The Korean, we don't call it a war.
Conflict
it
or the
police action.
Police action, yeah.
But the North
first
Koreans,
UN prosecuted war.
Yeah. And so the North Koreans had streamed south into South Korea and were taking over the country, and it was all going to be communist unless somebody got in there and done something about it. And this is where the United Nations, which was finally getting started, where they could furnish troops from different countries. There's 4 or 5 countries when we got over there that had troops there already, and so we worked together and pushed the communists back up over the.
So now, what is it specifically that you and Dick do in that?
We were in an engineer combat battalion.
So did you guys do things like build the bridges and?
All of our companies were doing work like, well, the first thing is taking care of our own troops, setting up water points for them where they had clean, safe water to drink, cook with, and bathe in, with shower points. Then the important work, communications, like you were doing, setting up communications lines, building bridges across rivers so that tanks could roll across on pontoon bridges. High roadblocks that were all chewed up from bombing and stuff, had to fix them up, straighten them out. So we had heavy equipment, we had to take all that with us to do that kind of work.
So you have some sense of what these kids are going through today that are
quite.
working in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Maybe I was telling you before that our particular mission of our battalion was to go straight up the center of the peninsula and make a pathway for all the other troops to follow to get on up into position where they could push the North Korean. By that time, the Chinese had come into it too. There were Chinese up there above the 38th parallel. They had trenches all across there, loaded with fighters. And
this is when MacArthur wanted to go for it.
He said the best thing to do is nuke them. And Harry Truman didn't think that was a good idea, so he fired MacArthur. That was a sad mistake, I think.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it was the right thing to do, not get involved in any more atomic bombs, but That would have.
Well, they should have at least tried to push the Chinese out,
Yeah.
without even having to use atomic
Yeah,
energy, I
just
think.
one of them, like, it ended the war in Japan
Yeah.
real quick when they dropped a couple of them.
Well, not even if they didn't, they should. It seems like by conventional actions that they could have just pushed the Chinese back out.
But-
You know? I think we learned that what was in '80. It was in the early '80s when China went and invaded North Vietnam, and the North Vietnamese kicked it right in the butt.
Same thing.
Yeah.
But, well, so what happened, we were over there for a couple of years, and we left in August of '50 and got back in '52, and we didn't
So you
get
had
back
2 years.
in Korea.
Did you have any furlough to come back home, or did you stay there straight 2 years?
Straight on through, I didn't even get,